I shot a buck, and I got down and I seen my arrow. I didn't go over there and look, but I saw my arrow sticking out of the ground. Looks like a pass-through.
This is one of those national holidays.
Well, of sadness.
Nah, I mean, we don't know. We got some good breakfast though.
Well, the plan, we know that if it was a good shot, it's forward and low. And my plan is to put another arrow in my can. Because everyone says, let them lay if it's back, and if it's in the shoulder or forward, you gotta get another arrow in.
To the left. Well, you can see him turning his head. I don't know if it's clear on that or not. Oh, you can see the horns right there.
It looks like an 8. The brow short though?
Yeah, they look a little short. Yeah.
Well, this chapter might have just came to an end. Found his bed where we left him last night. He ain't here. Just a little bit of blood. Not even a lot of blood. I don't think there's anything else we can do. Search the area a little bit. He got up from the bed after how we thought he was looking last night, and he's probably not gonna die. Oh, that sucks. Well, pardon the wind, sunny, crappy lighting. But I'm out here. This is tough. I'm out here looking for sheds and also looking for the buck that I wounded in November. We thought he survived, but then we never got any more pictures of him throughout the season. And his last known well was in this huge swamp. So kind of like an impenetrable swamp in November especially. But now the snow's kind of batted down a lot of this crap around me, as you can see behind me. And I found him. So it's March 5th. I found the buck that I shot in early November. So I don't know, not really sure how to feel about that. He's only probably 150 yards from his last known location that we tracked him to in November. But like I said, straight into this swamp. This is a piece of property we don't have permission to hunt, but we did get permission to walk today, and I found him. So I'm gonna show you him. I don't know how to feel about this, but here he is. That's definitely him. That is the 8-pointer that I shot, and he looks a little bit nicer than what we thought. He's probably pushing 130, but I don't know what I'm gonna do. I guess this is I don't know. I guess this puts that story to rest. We don't have to look for him any longer, but pretty much not cool finding him 4 months after you shoot him. All right, guys.
Welcome to the Deer Shot Podcast, presented by Siman Brothers Outdoors and the Leaky John Boat Company.
He went and watched a movie that has a $200 million production budget, and then the next thing he watched was our video on YouTube that has a $0 production budget.
This is the first buck I've shot in
over 10 years.
Your track job was the first fun track job. That kind of like, I think part of my life was influenced by that night.
Then you miss him 3 times with a rifle at 70 yards on video for the whole world to see.
Yeah, that's what Caleb did. 5 years ago, we couldn't shoot a deer at 100 yards with a slug gun. Now you're shooting turkeys at 100 yards with a shotgun.
Joey takes
The shop is closing up.
Make sure he takes all his right antlers. You can't leave it.
All right, guys. Deer Shot Podcast, episode 86. For the first time in a while, we are actually in studio and recording a present and local and near and dear podcast.
No computers, no dealing with webcams, no dealing with crazy audio.
No remote podcasts, no pre-recorded. We're just going to air this episode this week podcast. This one is a relevant and recent and up-to-date. It's March 14th, and this is the podcast that will be airing on St. Paddy's Day, March 17th. Do you have any plans for that?
Working.
I'm not working, but
It's not my shift, but I picked up a trade. I'm like, what am I doing on Monday on St. Paddy's Day?
Yeah, I know there was times when we did celebrate St. Paddy's Day because we were young, but and just wanted to drink, but I haven't really felt an urge to celebrate St. Paddy's Day in about 10 years.
I haven't had an urge to do anything in March in 10 years because all we do is flip pancakes.
Yeah, I'm going to do that. The next 3 days, I'm going to be at the VFW.
Yeah,
doing
flipping pancakes for the community.
Yeah, so if you're local, come stop out at the pancake breakfast.
Remember that guy who told us that we have too much time to hunt and podcast and we should help the community more?
Yeah.
You all right?
Yeah. Getting over some sickness over here. Say that again?
We had that guy comment on our videos. He's like, how do you guys have so much time to hunt? You should be donating your time to the community.
Oh,
blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Like, we donate 20 hours a week in March.
Yeah, so much time in March. 17 years I've been a volunteer fireman now.
I got 15?
Yeah.
This is my 15th year.
It is so, it feels longer than that actually, but yeah, 17
Regardless,
years.
Moving on.
Yeah, so St. Paddy's Day, we're not doing nothing. We're going to talk today about Isaac's buck from 2024.
Spoiler alert if you didn't see the Facebook and Instagram post.
Yeah, Isaac found his buck. We're going to deep dive into that. The episode on Deer Camp Chronicles was one day in November. It actually talked about Isaac and Ryan not finding their bucks that they shot, and we'll get deep into that because
we got more story too.
Yeah, Ryan found his as well, so we're going to talk about that here in a little bit, but let's get some other stuff out of the way first. We've been shed hunting. I finally was allowed to shed hunt. I did every year. I do every year I try to get in the woods and start looking for antlers a little bit too prematurely.
Yeah, you did a full shed hunt before this guy shed.
Yeah, but you
didn't know that he didn't shed.
Yeah, I mean, we're playing the trail camera game this time of year because we're not entering the woods. So when you get 5 or 6 days with the bucks you're looking for not being on camera, you start to think, oh, maybe that one without antlers is my buck.
Caleb gets itchy.
I get really itchy. So I did a full walk looking for the 3-year-old 10, and then that night he showed back up on camera. And then another couple weeks went by, and then we started getting video or pictures of him with 1 antler on, or 2 antlers, then 1 antler, then no antlers. And then he finally was antlerless. We can tell who he is because he has an ear split all the way down the middle. So he can't.
Which is wild. Did we ever find him
No,
last year?
I never. So he must have split his ear towards the end of the season. If whatever buck, because there's a certain buck I think he was last year, a nice 2-year-old.
No split ear.
I got good video footage of him actually coming underneath my tree stand during the rut. Smelled like piss real bad. Back when I was hunting birds.
I also don't remember the split ear when I saw him the first weekend of the season.
He had it in velvet.
Did he have
though.
it?
Yeah, he had the split ear in velvet.
I just didn't remember because it's a pronounced.
Yeah, he's
split.
got a crazy split ear. So we'll always know it's him.
Which is
he
cool.
He finally did shed, and I went in the next day after we knew that he had shed both his antlers, and I actually was able to find it within like 10 minutes. I wasn't even to the area where we had, so I had 3 cameras set up, 2 on escape routes, 1 on some corn. Then it had been on that pile of corn had been there since gun season-ish time, so December, and that's the main area that he was feeding on, bait-wise on our farm. And I wasn't even to that area yet. I was making my way up down a ridge, just doing a zigzag, and I found a spot where the leaves, like underneath a red oak tree, had been all disturbed, and there was no acorns left. The deer had perused the area down to nothing, eaten all the acorns, and then his shed was just laying there. I think it was laying tines up like that, if I remember correctly. And it was just laying there. And that's the first one that he dropped as well. So then we know that he had his other antler on for another day. And I know the direction that he left the corn. I have a video of him walking away with one antler on down a trail, heading back towards our property. And I've looked 2 or 3 times since for the other side, and Ethan went and looked once pretty heavily, and nothing.
Yeah, so unfortunately with him and a lot of deer, sometimes they shed them side by side, sometimes they shed them 100 yards apart, and sometimes they shed them miles apart. And we've pretty much exhausted our permission pieces for his other side, would you say?
Yeah, it's going to be, if we find his other side now, it's going to be us stumbling upon it when we're doing something else at this point. I've checked all the main trails and bedding areas that we have access to.
So most likely...
There's a couple spots on our farm where we haven't quite got them yet, but...
Most likely when we don't find them this early, we don't find them for years then. So he probably shed his other side on a property that we can't go on, I would assume.
But it's nice to have the one side. It looks like he's almost trying to start a drop tine.
Yeah, he's definitely a cool buck once you get a look at these antlers. He's got some cool characteristics. Yeah, he looks a lot like Hook in the way his crab claws out here.
Yeah, he's definitely potentially has some Hook genes to him, but he's got Hook
His
always
twos
had
are
taller
better.
threes, right? So Hook was like a short twos, tall threes, good 4 kind of guy. And this deer, this is your typical every tine goes down, but he does have a kind of cool crab claw at the end there. He broke off the end of his other main beam and his point on the other main beam, but I have not put a tape on him. I bet he only goes low 120s, maybe like 120s, high teens. But
Right now, would you say?
yeah,
Yeah, I would. He would definitely.
because
not
he's
be
got
funny.
nowhere near the mass of your deer.
Yeah,
over
we'll talk
there.
about my deer in a second. And if anybody wants to see Hook, they have to go watch the old videos because we had people complaining about us talking about things we point at and then not showing
We
it.
don't, yeah, we only have one camera set up, so it's kind of hard to point the camera that way. But Hook's on the wall over here. If you watch any video from the deer shop, there's this big 10-point mounted on the wall. In any of our videos that show us, screwing around in here.
Might be in the No, he's not in the introduction.
No, he is.
Is he in the introduction?
He's in the introduction, walking away in the corner of the Seafield.
Okay,
when I
okay.
had
So
an
he is.
encounter with him.
You have seen him already. But
2000.
the mount is sitting right off a camera here.
2017 or 2007?
So
It's 2007. 2017?
teen.
What year did he die?
2016 or 17. So
Maybe,
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
2000 teens.
Too much.
Definitely not 2007.
Yeah.
But when it comes to shed hunting, you haven't gone to our buddies' farms yet, basically.
No, I got the green light.
So there is a lot of shed hunting to come,
Yeah.
just not here on our farm.
Our main big shed hunting farm, Nick and Tyler's lease, has not been touched yet. We're waiting. We're actually waiting.
Because there's a big buck with
there's
one
bucks on the
side.
other side. I'm going to call that deer Sleepy.
Do you?
Nick doesn't know it yet, but that deer's nickname is going to be
It's gonna be-
Sleepy because I got all those videos of him sleeping.
And it'll be
underneath
Nick's
the
number one next year. You think?
horizontal rub. Yeah, potentially. Nick changes his mind too much, but
It does always kind of suck though when you see these big bucks with one side because
Yeah,
you know
'cause
it's
that-
going to be hard to put those two together.
yeah, like we go over there, we find. Let's say we go over there and we find his one side. The other side could be fucking anywhere.
Yeah, it's hard to put those together, which kind of sucks. But
I always, we can only go back on the stuff that we, what's the word for it? Our own past experiences. And whenever a deer around here on our farm, especially, has had one side on and the other side dropped, we always find them 300-400 yards apart. So
that kind of blows.
I found a couple other dinks so far. They're kind of the same, like just shitty long beam. Like a lot of the sheds are all kind of the same right now. But
Yeah, and this has been the story of our farm this year.
Yeah.
Did you see the buck last night? It was a
Yeah, we
buck
still
this
got-
size with antlers
yeah,
still.
both
Or 2
sides
nights
still
ago.
on. Yeah. This one I found this weird long beam 4.5. I don't know what 6-point side. I found this one on that run I was telling you about. That's a spot I'm going to put a camera next year, like one of those. Leave a camera for the whole season up high, watching the path because it's a pretty good run.
The cool thing, I mean, we'll never know it, but these
Yeah.
will be the deer we'll be chasing in a couple years.
Yeah, and that's the
We'll
thing.
never know.
When you find sheds of this size, unless the style of antler remains from when he's a 1.5-year-old, which never happens, it's a crapshoot. You never know what these end up being.
It is funny. This might be a conversation for a different day,
Burr.
but like people find big rubs in the woods, trees tore up. They're like, oh man, giant buck rubbing this tree. This 1.5-year-old buck is polished,
Yeah.
smooth.
Yep.
So he has been rubbing trees
Yep.
nonstop. And yeah, so when you find those big rubs, sometimes it's just deer this big.
It's kind of wild. This
Because a tree this big would fit perfectly in between his antlers for him to tear up.
I think if you look at like, especially if you look at the
size.
pedicles and the mass and the size of the antlers, like this is obviously your average 1.5-year-old around here.
Yep.
Shed, right? Pretty clear that this is a 3-year-old buck.
Yep.
It's definitely not the next year. It's definitely 2 years after this shed. I mean, if you look at if you're watching the video, look at the pedicle size difference. But here's your typical 3-year-old antler, typical 1.5-year-old antler.
This one's probably a 2er, right?
Here's like a 4. Here's a
might be a
4 or
3-year.
5-year-old antler back here, which is even. You put those antlers next to each other. This is off Luke's buck, off Sledge. It's incredibly bigger. Mm-hmm. Look at the pedicle difference there.
But
So 3-year-old in my left hand, 4 or 5-year-old in my right hand.
it does get
Huge
difficult when
difference.
you see trail camera pictures of these deer. Some angles make these deer look the same size and same age, even though
Yeah, like you get them hand in hand, way different.
Yeah.
Like incredibly different.
especially when you have a reveal or something, you can't tell how big a deer was.
I mean,
That pretty much sums it up, though.
yeah. 1.5-year-old shed is an inch across, 1.5 inches, 2.5.
Yeah.
I mean, you just broke your antlers.
He's all right.
But yeah, you're watching the video right now. I know for the audio people it's tough, but there's a difference.
I knocked the deer antler off the wall.
And Isaac just knocked his head off the wall.
Regardless, moving on with shed hunting.
We got the only other real information we got to provide for shed hunting right now is Ethan has been going down to public land. He's been doing this public land scouting thing. He wants to expand our
Horizons.
operation to include more and have some public land hunting in Ohio next year. He found a nice shed. I mean, that's actually a really nice shed. Probably a 2.5-year-old, maybe a weak 3.5-year-old, but I mean, really long beam, and that's the kind of deer you want to find. You're on public land, you want to find stuff like this for next year. I mean, he's excited about it.
But public land Ohio, which makes it a little bit more tough
Yeah,
to
and
pull the trigger.
I'm sure he would have no problem shooting a deer like the one you killed over there on public land. You know, something like that goes by him.
But you get an Aaron Olson situation where he shoots a what was his Ohio buck? 115, 120 maybe?
Yeah, probably a deer like this one. It was probably about, I mean, it was a 10-point equal to this one, I would say.
So it's a little bit different when you're traveling to, you may still be traveling several hours, but you're hunting public land in your home state. So that's the one tag you get.
Yeah.
So you have to be a little bit more picky, I would say, a little bit
Yeah.
different. You have to hunt a little bit different than if you go to Pennsylvania or Indiana, out of state.
Speaking of, look how similar
Mine and Luke's.
Sledge and your buck are on that side. I'm looking at it now for the first time. This is the first time I've seen Isaac's buck in person, but
They're
those
almost
deer-
identical, except Sledge is a year older, I
Yeah.
would say.
for
But
sure.
that beam is about the same. Brow tines are different. And this deer was hanging out with him
Yeah, in the
years
summertime.
past
Yeah,
and in the summer.
Yeah,
Yeah, I would say he was 5, he was 4.
that's kind of what we thought.
Man, he stinks.
I know Pavlik's going to give us a hard time with that. He's
I shot another 4-year-old 120.
Pavlik thinks every single deer like this is a 2-year-old.
That's true. Not around here.
Yeah, I mean, that's as much as we got on the shed hunting front. Switching even further, we might have a good turkey hunting.
We are
year.
not going to get excited yet, but we are excited.
I mean, this is the most March gobbler action that we've ever had. And I don't even have cameras out for gobblers yet. I might actually put a few out today. I got a couple ideas on where I want to throw some cell cams for gobblers today, but we've been seeing multiple groups of large groups of hens and jakes. There's one flock that had, sometimes it's weird. I've been watching this flock move around the farms lately, out in the fields. Sometimes it's all together in one. Sometimes the flock kind of breaks up into two, but I mean, there's probably 100 birds in it.
And at least a handful of gobblers.
And there's 4 gobblers that have been hanging out with that flock. And
But
they've
then we
been-
got another group of gobblers.
Yeah, and then the other day we got another group of gobblers on a completely other side of the farm, not anywhere near where I've been. I mean, a mile away from where I've been watching this other big flock. A group of 3 gobblers coming through. Actually, where I found these sheds is coming through on those cameras. So
For the first time,
There's gobblers
For the
moving
first time in a
around.
while, we may have actual separate groups of birds that we can hunt on different sides of the farms. Lately, the past couple of years, we kind of just had that one little group that we've been hunting.
yeah, the last few years,
And that's
I
it.
think actually, I mean, last year we had no gobblers on the farm, which sucked. The year before we had 1 gobbler on the farm that got killed by someone else.
I don't even remember turkey hunting last year. We went down south a bunch. That
I
was
went to
what I remember.
last year I did a lot of hunting with Dylan at our other spot, and
yeah.
that poached bird and all that kind of situation happened. And then we went down to Gore's a lot because Gore had a big pile of birds, including the white wing. I have a guy. Me and Gore we're going down next week, right?
We're going on next Monday?
Yeah, next Monday we're going down there to.
We're still planning that, I think.
Yeah, shed hunt, frost seed, and get gobbler cams out at Gore's.
Yeah, we're just running down during the day, right?
Yeah, just gonna be a day trip. Be back by 4 or 5 o'clock, hopefully.
Perfect.
But he's got the white. We're hoping that the white winged ghost gobbler is still down there at Gore's, because that would be an awesome story to put down. We've shot at that bird twice. I shot at him once. Well, actually, I shot at him twice in one hunt, and then he was there when Matt killed his bird, because he's left us 2 feathers. Once when I shot at him, and once when Matt killed his buddy. He's left us a wing feather, white, beautiful wing feather. Actually, is it here?
I don't know where it is.
It's here somewhere. Doesn't matter.
Regardless, stay tuned. Turkey hunting may be exciting.
Yeah, we might actually have some good turkey hunting footage this year. We'll see. Back in the day, if you go back 10, 15 years, it was nothing for us to be chasing multiple gobblers around here. And even going back as far as 3, 4 years ago, there were some years where we had multiple gobblers. So the years that it hits right.
Which hopefully this is the year.
And, and that's the nice thing about turkey hunting. Unlike deer that take, 2, 3, 4, 5 years to grow these caliber deer that we want to kill, it just takes 2 years to grow turkey. So if you have a year with a bunch of jakes, the next year you might have 4 or 5 gobblers.
Oh, I didn't tell you. I left for work yesterday, 2 days ago in the morning. There was a couple jakes right here in the yard.
Yeah, so there's birds around.
So there's another group. There was at least 3 or 4 jakes right down here by the neighbors.
There are birds around.
Did you ever touch on, if people really follow us on social media, the skull? Did you ever give answers about the skull? I saw it up there behind us.
No, but
because then you post that and there was all sorts of people commenting what it was.
Well, that's not the one I posted.
That's not the skull.
No, the one I posted.
Same animal though,
yeah,
right?
Yeah, and I believe they're pigs. So Luke found that one wild. That's the skull that Luke found in Lorain County. There was an area of Lorain County that had some hogs get out maybe 10 years ago, and over time they were killed by hunters or killed by farmers, and
I think the ODNR went and cleaned
I think
them up.
the ODNR actually got involved. That's one of those local legend things. And Luke ended up finding that skull on a farm he had permission on in Lorain County a couple years ago and brought it back. But when I was shed hunting last week in another farm, which is a pig farm, I found a giant pig skull. And I posted on social media, and everyone's like, "What the hell is that?"
There was some weird responses too.
That skull is sitting on that rock by that mineral lake. I'm just going to keep it there all year. So it's going to be in the background of the mineral lake pictures.
So that's the answer on the skull.
Yeah, pigs. They're all pigs. Some more recent work. We did a lot of food plot work the other day. We got all our frost seeding of our existing clover plots here on the farm done. We made a Family Dream Farm episode, put it out on YouTube, so check that out. It's pretty good. Isaac came up with some plans to expand on our mega plot this year. So
We've
we're going to
got
do
some plans on that.
So we're going to have to do some new work on the mega plot, which is going to be fun. I'm going to have fun with it. I think it's going to be cool.
We need to talk to our water guy again, I think.
Yeah.
Before we fully invest into how we're going to do that watering hole.
He is willing to get on it anytime. Haas.
We just go mow it, dig it out, and put some sand down?
Yeah, I mean, I was looking at it yesterday. I drove by there. I was out shed hunting. We're going to have to get some cattails removed.
Yeah.
They're like, that whole area is cattails. So we're going to have
Well, we can just kill them.
Yeah, like it worked on our pond. If you go up to our pond right now, on the
Yeah,
south
we killed
pond,
them all and mowed them.
there's no cattails on it right now.
We took a sickle mower that was built in the 30s and mowed the cattails off, which was sketchier than hell. But we can do that
It's
over
flatter
here.
there. It's flatter on that side. So.
Perfect.
But yeah, we're going to expand the mega plot again. There's going to be soybeans planted around it, so it's going to be early season food in the ag fields there, and then we're going to have kind of early season food in the food plot too. It's just the way it shakes out this year, but it should make the hunting.
Yeah, you have to keep an eye on the Family Dream Farm to see the whole plan. But basically, we're extending there's a farm pond back there that's about 3/4 of an acre, half an acre.
Yeah,
We're extending the food plot up to the edge of that, and then mowing a nice entrance into the pond for the deer to water at.
yeah. We're going to make it a. We kind of do use the pond as a barrier, but they've been getting downwind. They still find they have a way they can still get downwind of us.
They've been hanging out in that area a lot,
right? And the way we're going to increase this food plot size, I think it'll help. We could even go around those pines and like incorporate those pines in there as part of the bedding and have it cut across. We'll find. We'll be able to. We'll figure it out. But
yeah, it'll be cool to keep an eye on. We'll show some aerials of that eventually.
Yeah, we're gonna just keep increasing that food plot. We got to find out what we want to do with the Seafield food plot. So last year it was. I don't even remember.
We just let it go. They planted beans.
Yeah, so it was really bad. If I remember correctly, the Seafield plot was really bad clover last year, and we let the farmer kind of till it up and drill beans into it and then leave it for us over winter. It's got this weird duckweed type. It looks like clover, but it's not clover, and this weird weed that's growing.
I'm sure it's something they don't eat because it's so.
There's lots of it.
Basically, to sum it up, the corner of that field is super wet, so we always planted a food plot, and we always tilled it with the tiller.
It's shady too, so like it doesn't get a shit ton of sunlight, so it's hard for the farmer to farm up against the woodlot there because the trees overhang.
And our podcast with Jason Say last year, whenever that was, he didn't really yell at us, but he kind of said we use a 3-point tiller a lot, and he said using that so much conditions the soil in a bad way because you're just pulverizing the top 2 inches of the soil over and over and over again.
Yep.
And we think that's why the soybeans that the farmer planted didn't grow very well.
Yeah.
And the soil was probably depleted of nutrients from planting food plots for so long.
If it stays kind of dry, I know it's supposed to get wet next week, but I might actually use the plow.
Really plow it up.
So like turn the soil over for real, disc it, and I'll spray it first. I'll wait till the green starts coming up. We'll give it a spray, a plow, and a disc. The field around it right now is going to be winter wheat and then transitioning into alfalfa. So this fall, when we're hunting, it'll be all alfalfa around it. So I don't really want to plant clover and chicory, which is basically the same as alfalfa. Ethan wants to plant some screening there. We can definitely do some screening to try to open up the deer's travel route.
I don't know if it's needed, though.
I don't know if it's needed either, but
it's a pretty secluded field. The screening wouldn't really do
that's
much.
why I haven't been doing screening in this plot. We did back in the day, and it didn't seem to really make a difference, and I never really did after that. But I do want to plant something in there that's different than alfalfa
to give the deer some variety.
It'll probably end up being some kind of Nebraska mix again, like always. But we'll have to come up with some plans on that. But something new, and then. Actually going back, and it's been a couple years since we've done it, but I'm gonna plant some kill plots this year. We kind of got away from it for a while there. We were planting kill plots, and when I say kill plots, I'm talking like very small, 1/4 of an acre, smaller plots in the deep woods,
in little natural clearings, basically.
Yeah, natural clearings or areas with open canopies. We never really had a ton of luck killing deer on them. But we haven't done them in a few years, and I think it has changed the movement around a little bit. I don't think they obviously won't use a spot like that as destination feed, but I think the bucks add it to their checklist for when they're rutting to like stop and hit a scrape.
Plus, it gives a perfect place for them to put a scrape, set some rubs, start a scrape line, whatever they're going to do.
It opens up the monotony of the woods, you know, to have these little open areas with food. So I have 2 kill plots planned this year.
And they're both right next. They're probably 300-400 yards away.
Yeah, they're not far apart, but they're in the same chunk of woods. The one has a watering hole. Actually, they're both going to end up having watering holes by them.
So one of the reasons they have watering holes is they're old oil well sites, right?
Yeah,
that's kind of why they're clear and why there's a depression that we've dug into a water hole.
Yep, they're old oil well. They've been drilled, tapped, and fixed. So they're not a lot tree-wise grows there, and it's probably because of the soil quality. We might have to do some spraying of. I'm going to do the liquid fertilizer again this year. The deer grow, so we might have to do some of that, like the emergent stuff when this stuff starts popping up, but to give it a little boost. But the goal is to get some of that stuff planted before the canopy starts to cover up, and we have till about May 1st till the leaves start budding out. So I got another month to get everything cleared out, and I might do some of that work today actually.
The only other property stuff that I'm working on is possibly planting a couple acres of corn.
Yeah, we've talked about planting our own corn.
I think this year I'm going to do it because I got nothing. Long story short, I have a lot that I'm building a house on, and there's 2 acres in the back that are just old field.
Yeah.
It's actually where Kendall killed her buck this past year.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we're going to plant corn, harvest it, and have corn, I think.
Yeah, we can do the whole ear corn thing.
Maybe.
We'll see.
The problem with that is nobody picks it. But we could probably talk to...
Yeah, the outfitter guy.
Yeah, he is a corn picker.
Yeah.
So
he said he'd help us out.
We'll see that to come. You'll see details on that on Family Dream Farm. That's kind of our place for that stuff.
Yeah. Does that count? Does your property count as part of the Family Dream Farm? Sure, why not?
Sure,
right?
Why not?
Yeah, we can make up the rules. All right. Let's get to the meat and potatoes of why we are here today. Was it November 2nd or 3rd?
I don't know. First week in November, the 4-year-old ate.
Yep.
This was my number one hit lister, I would say.
Yeah, he kind of started showing up, and
I started hunting where he started showing up.
Yeah, I got a bunch of videos of him hitting scrapes in a couple different places, and it was one of those. He's around, he's hitting scrapes, he's rutting in the area. If you spend enough time hunting it, you're going to get an opportunity situations.
So this is the quintessential 130-inch 8-point that is not 130 inches.
Yeah,
but
right.
people see this and they'll be like, oh yeah, 130-inch buck. No, this is a 123-inch 8-point.
What makes a trophy, right?
Yeah. So he's the 4-year-old that we were chasing. Probably only were chasing him for what?
Couple
week
weeks.
And a half, 2 weeks maybe?
Like
showed up, started hitting scrapes, huge body.
Yeah,
definitely a mature
obviously
deer.
a mature deer. He kind of had like a Roman nose. If you watch the podcast, if you're watching the podcast on YouTube, I know I keep referencing that. Sorry, you saw in the intro the trail camera videos and stuff of him. But Isaac was hunting a new stand that we had hung specifically for that kind of day. It was literally a stand hung for a November morning. It's on the inside corner of a field with a pasture behind it as a barrier.
And I think he busted me out of that same stand the week prior. It was debatable whether it was him or the wolf, but giant buck came from downwind. Huge, I should say giant bodied deer came from downwind, making all sorts of noise. Blew me out. I couldn't see him through the thick stuff, but he came from the wrong way.
Yeah.
Then the next week, he came from the right way.
I mean, perfect. Except for
the shot.
Yeah, I mean, that's the throes of self-filming. I'm
trying to film him, which I was able to get everything on film. Pretty much as perfect as you can self-film, I would say.
Yeah, he just was in
He was in the thick shit, and I tried squeezing a shot. And during all that, I estimated the yardage a little bit off. I thought he was like 25, 27 yards. Long story short, single pin sight set to 25 yards. I put it pretty much right where I needed to put it, and he was at 36 yards after I walked it out. So,
and I think body. I think him having the body that he did and the way his rack sits high, so it makes his rack look bigger. When they look bigger, they look closer.
I simply underestimated the range. 36 yards. And from finding him, watching the video, it looks like I simply hit low basically through his elbows.
Yeah, I wanted to bring this up when the time came, and I guess right now is a good time for it. That day, that literal same day, you and Freeman both did the exact same thing.
Shot a deer in the same exact spot.
You both shot deer right through the elbows.
And I think they were both due to us misjudging the range.
Misjudging the range, but I also think that there is a fear that we have developed over the last couple years because of the last deer that you lost, and because of Spaniel losing 2 deer that in this way. We're afraid of pegging them high shoulder. So we have started to aim lower, and due to that subconscious, like, let's not hit them high shoulder. We've lost so many good bucks this way. Let's aim a little bit lower. We're starting to aim a little bit lower on all these deer. You know, if you're aiming a little bit more mid-body, that this would have been a clean miss. But the fact that you were lined up perfectly with his legs on the shot, it took out both of his front,
Yeah, and it kind of hits, the shot kind of hit some shit too. It was through some thick. So a combination of
the
that.
video looks worse than your shot angle.
The video, so my video camera was way to my right, low, and I'm shooting from up, or no. Video was way to my left, low, and I'm shooting.
The camera tree's left in that stand.
So I had a nice line straight to his vitals, but the camera 3 feet away from the shot is through a bunch of shit, and it was sailing low. You could see immediately it was sailing low, and he didn't drop either a lot. He dropped a little bit, but he didn't do the chest to the ground type deal. If he did chest to the ground type deal, it would have been money. But
do we need to? I'm replaying this image in my head of that shot. Do we need to go in there with a chainsaw and maybe clean some stuff up a bit?
That whole stand situation needs help, because that long story short, on the stand, it's a 1-man ladder stand with a tiny platform and a shooting rail. So like when you stand up to shoot, you kind of have to do a shimmy just to turn. You don't even have enough room to turn because the platform on that stand
it's a gun hunting platform
this big. So that mixed with filming, just a combination of all things created me not.
Do we need to find a better tree? The problem is that there needs to be a stand somewhere in that area.
I think the tree's all right. It needs a hang on.
Okay.
It needs a hang on that's about 2 or 3 feet higher. Then we need to cut some actual shooting lanes. But the location is good. Obviously, we've had a lot of encounters with bucks in that area as well.
Yeah. I mean, that's an area. So we were.
So that's just something we need to tweak.
I had a hang on bang I had one of the Hawk XOP setups, maybe 150, 200 yards northwest of that. And that's where I was getting videos of him hitting a scrape.
Mm-hmm.
And I had envisioned in my head killing a deer
Out
in
of
that
that
area
stand.
was at the other spot.
The only problem with that other spot is access is a bitch.
The other spot is like you have to go in at 4 a.m. It's one of those, like, if you go in the afternoon or you go in, an hour before shooting light, you're going to be bumping so many deer out of the bedding. Like, you need to get in there really
And
early.
you got to go through a swamp to
It's
get
like
to
an
it.
all-day sit kind of stand.
But that stand is only 100 yards from this one.
Yeah. The one you're hunting, the stand you shot this deer off is kind of actually more of a gun stand, especially if there's going to be, last year there was a ton of corn. This year, we're going to have to reevaluate because there's going to be a lot of deer using that area for the beans.
I think that whole field's going to be beans.
Yeah, I think the whole field's going to be beans, like 40 acres of beans.
But yeah.
And in the past, when that has been beans, bucks use that edge a lot. So
let's get back to the story. We knew poor shot. Blood Trail kind of told a different story.
yeah, so here's another thing. If you aim low front and you get legs, or especially if you put an arrow through the brisket, so that front brisket, it bleeds a lot and down. So it bleeds heavily.
And the problem with that is the longer you walk on the trail, the more confident you become.
Yeah, your blood trail was immaculate.
Because it's the same blood trail as if you double lung him, basically. Maybe a little less bubbles.
Yeah, because it's
and stuff.
dropping down and it's
all right there.
yeah.
When you hit him high shoulder and you're not getting any blood, you're like, oh shit, this is not good.
Yeah, because it's got to run down the whole body and then drip onto the
And
ground.
I hit him there.
But
The autopsy, after I found the deer, he was intact enough. Like, still a lot of the hide, a lot of him was eaten off. But I was able to see that basically the broadhead went through both his elbows without hitting too much bone. But I could see a definitive slice in the entrance wound.
Yeah.
And then the exit, it was eaten up and rotten, but the exit wound, like, there was a softball size rotten part and the rest of the hair was intact. So you could pretty much tell through and through. The bones were still intact though, so I didn't hit bone.
how far did the arrow stay in him?
It went through.
It went through right there.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm trying to remember. Because I know after the shot, you came back here to the shop. I was actually sleeping in that day. We ate breakfast in here, and we made a plan. You were going to go and you went in by yourself to track the blood trail originally, just in case he was bedded down somewhere and needed a follow-up shot.
So, in hindsight, I think that was a good idea because if I would have hit bone on the legs,
Yeah, he would have been.
he would have been hurting. He would have been moving slow. Probably would have been able to easily get a second shot at him.
Yeah, if you would have hit bone, I don't think he would
have been wheelbarrowing.
He would have went down into that creek. I don't think he would have been able to get out.
No.
You know
So
what I mean, he'd
so
been riding that creek.
that was our thought, and I think our thought process was correct on that. But since this was merely a flesh wound and ligament, probably,
Yeah.
so he was definitely going to be hurting. But I think mostly he probably bled out. I think that's how he ended up dying.
You know what sucks is even with 4K, 120 frames, slow motion, perfect video, we still were having a hard time telling exactly what kind of shot it was. It's just not that, in these realistic in the woods rut hunting scenarios when you're self-filming are a lot different than food plot deer, perfectly clear arrow flight. You get to see everything. I mean, it was a lot to decipher.
Very same situation to Born Again Matt shooting that buck in Indiana. Perfect video, couldn't tell where the arrow hit.
Right.
Even though you watch the arrow go towards the deer, and just in the chaos, you can't exactly see where it hit.
Yeah. And the thing is, Ryan did the same thing that night. And you guys, so you ended up, after you went on your initial track.
Let's finish that story.
Yeah.
Went on initial track. I went back out several hours later to see if I could get another shot into him because we thought it was a leg shot. He was bleeding a lot, even at the point of impact. I went and blood tracked him for probably 200 yards. He never bedded up. I backed off when he got to a thicket. And at that point, we kind of had no idea what was going on. We thought maybe brisket at that point.
Yeah, I was thinking brisket. I was hoping like brisket.
The blood trail was saying brisket.
I was hoping brisket, and maybe you got a little bit of the windpipe. It's hard to tell. It looked like there was possibly bubbles in it, which bubbles can also just be large drips.
Yeah,
which sucks.
Just
You know what I mean?
aerated
Yep.
blood. Fast forward several hours, we call a drone out.
Yep, skyhound.
Drone comes out, can't find him.
Too sunny. Yeah.
Too bright. You look at the woods, it's just a bunch of hot and cold spots. Couldn't see.
Yeah.
We found some deer, but we definitely didn't find him.
Some areas were completely
Even though we
washed
flew
out.
over exactly where he was. We think.
Yeah, 100%. But it was like the drone would just show completely washed out like white areas that you couldn't tell any detail in.
Fast forward more hours,
You're going to knock that thing off again.
I know. He's not going to break. He's just going to break. Fast forward more hours. Me and Caleb go out looking for him. Blood trail. This is, I don't know, 8 hours after the shot, maybe more.
Yeah, it's
in the afternoon. And we think we jump him another 100 yards from where I gave up.
I think we jumped him, but I think it was less than 100 yards from where you gave up. I think
maybe 75 yards.
Yeah, like 50 to 75.
Okay. In the thick shit, we jump him.
Thickest stuff in the farm.
As soon as we jump him, we back out and we call the drone back after dark.
Yeah, he was taken off across a open woods at that point, which is like, that's tough because the blood trail was starting to clot.
It was basically gone at that point.
So we're like, fuck.
Call the drone back at night. If you want to see the whole story, watch the video because there's Ryan's deer and then there's also another deer.
Yeah, so that night, I'll sum it up. We called the drone in for you. I guess you could tell that story, then I'll tell the rest of the story. So
call the drone in, find him with a pretty good, 75% sure that it was him. We find an 8-point bedded up.
Licking. Head down.
On the edge of a big swamp. He's in the perfect spot for him to die there, and we go find him the next morning.
Massive swamp. We also potentially found the wolf, the last footage of the wolf alive, bedded with 2 does, studding out, which is sad.
Which is weird. This kind of pales in the face of like what people think. This is November 2nd or 3rd.
Yeah.
It was probably 9 or 10 o'clock at night at this point. All these deer we find were bedded.
Yeah, they're all bedded. Yeah, so I think deer.
Bucks running around all night is a myth.
I mean, they do run around.
They run bed,
all night,
run bed.
Yeah, I think the dawn and dusk is your major times, and then in the middle of the night they do lay down and take.
Because we were finding does, we were finding bucks, we were finding a big mature 5+-year-old buck in the
that's
middle of the rut, bedded up.
That's the safest time for them is in the middle of the night bedding because outside of the random coon hunter and a coyote walking by, they don't have nothing to fear at night.
So it's a little bit weird, I guess. People think that they're running around all night long.
Sleeping all day. But yeah, especially that time of year. Well, I mean, the does might have just been tired from getting pushed, The wolf had been gone off our cameras at that point for 7 days, but he was one property over, bedded in an open flat of woods with there was no reason for him to be where he was besides the fact that there was 2 does with him. It was a nothing patch of open woods, but he was there potentially. It was a 10-point at least.
So to finish the story on this guy, we find him. I decide, I guess, that we're going to go look for him the next morning. Leave him be. We're not going to go in there at night. We could tell he was alive.
Yep, he was licking.
We could tell he was alive. I was going to go in the next morning. This is going to be another 12 hours later, so 24 plus hours from the shot, even more at that point.
Yeah.
And
the rest of us had a long night. You went home, went to bed. That night, we ended up taking the drone to another farm a couple miles away, neighboring of Tyler and Nick's lease, found a big giant 150 class dead buck that a guy shot, helped him drag that thing like 600 yards through the woods, found a shed from the buck Nick was hunting this year. And then the drone left there like 1 a.m, went to Freeman's farm where he had shot a deer in the leg, found that deer still alive as well. So it was that was the longest.
Typical Friday night in November.
Yeah, that was the longest 24-hour day I had all year. I mean, we were up from the crack of dawn.
I think it was a Friday.
Yeah, I think it was a Friday too. We were up from the crack of dawn till 2 o'clock in the morning doing deer stuff. And there's a whole video on the one day in November, so watch it.
So now my thoughts were, I'm going to go in the morning. I took my bow. It was a property we're allowed to be on. We're not really allowed to hunt it per se. There's other hunters and stuff, but we got permission to be there. Got permission to take a follow-up shot if needed. I was hoping to find him in the bed where we left him, and if not, I was hoping to find him mortally wounded and I could put a finishing shot on him. Went back there, did a deer. I snuck up on him, did a spot and stalk like you wouldn't imagine, as slow as you could possibly go.
You take your shoes off?
I didn't take my shoes off, but it was wet. And he wasn't there. Found his bed, drops of blood, that's it.
Yeah, you confirmed that the buck we had found licking and all that was head
him.
down.
There was blood there, barely any. And I looked around the area, probably like a 50 to 75 yard, did a whole bunch of circles, didn't find any more blood, didn't find any more beds, didn't find anything. May have jumped a deer, which in hindsight was probably him.
Yeah, I mean, hindsight, it was probably 100% was him.
And at that point, we pretty much gave up. We were going to watch we're going to watch trail cams.
Yeah, because this was meat and potatoes rut.
Yes.
Heavy rut. We knew Isaac's buck was in the area, potentially wounded, potentially still alive. We knew the wolf was in the area with 2 does. I mean, there was a lot of stuff going on.
And the crappy thing, so looking back, I wish I would have went back a week later and looked for him. But
We should have, in hindsight, I know this is where you want to go eventually. Should we have brought the drone back out that night, 24, that evening? After
before we get into the drone talk, should we have gone back a week later and looked? Probably, but it's the beginning of November. At this point, we're 2 properties off of ours. So if anytime we go back there, we're going to be ruining everybody's hunt.
Yep.
And it was already
being that guy.
Not really a stretch to get permission to go in there and look, but like you could tell people were going to be aggravated. We're ruining their properties.
Yeah.
And so to do it again and again and again, I don't know. So
there's the crowd of people out there that are going to say you need to exhaust all and every resource you possibly can to find your deer. And we're not opposed to that whatsoever. Ryan did it this year with a different deer, not the one he found. Not the one he wounded that night, but he had another situation a week later where he wounded a deer, and he kept on him and on him and on him and kept bringing the drone back out and finding the deer and going in and failed stalks and eventually did crossbow him to death.
So here's the next moral issue that I had and what I didn't want to happen, which could have happened. We could have gone this route. We could have brought the drone back out, found him. Probably would have been no problem finding him.
No, not where he was.
He would have been alive, and we would have had to go in and try to finish him off. After seeing exactly where he is with the drone, and that kind of tugs at my ethics a little bit. I don't want to be able to see the wounded deer on drone camera, land the drone, sneak in there and kill him. It just doesn't sit with how I want things to happen, and it doesn't sit with how I want to kill a deer.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's legal.
It is legal, yes.
So it's not breaking any laws to do that.
I can land the drone and then go try to kill him at the last known well, basically.
Yep. But I'm with you on that. I think it's tough I think you have to judge all things. It's not as simple as, well, I know the deer's right here. We can go kill him now. He's wounded. And how wounded is wounded? We had deer run around this farm with no legs. We've had multiple deer run around this farm without legs for years. So I got 6 sheds back here from a buck that only had 3 legs.
So if we would have went that route, he was probably still alive for several days, I would guess.
I think the fact
we would have bumped him and tried to shoot him, bumped him, tried to shoot him, bumped him, tried to shoot him. So where would we have ended up? We don't know. Would we have maybe got a shot and killed him? Maybe.
It just gets real sloppy real fast. If it was gun season, this would be different. Because gun season, you go in there with an army of dudes and ARs and just he's going to get killed.
Yeah, we'll kill him. But
we've done that many times.
And the ethics of it for me, and this is getting real philosophical.
Man, you're supposed to be the smart one.
I just got off a 48-hour shift. My brain is a little much.
How come I know the words and you don't?
Another thing that I'd like to bring up is that the deer kind of beat us in this situation. So I shot him, we tracked him, we jumped him, we couldn't find him. He beat us.
Yeah.
And bringing a drone in to try to find him some more is, I don't know if it's an unfair advantage, but this deer kind of beat it. Like I did not get it.
I mean, I definitely think it's an unfair advantage. It's just a legal unfair advantage.
So I didn't get him. I didn't get to grip and grin with him. I didn't get to count him as, my 4th mature buck in a row because he beat us basically. And there's something to be said about that. I know the meat goes to waste. But I don't know. I feel better about it than chasing him with a drone, shooting him again, shooting him here, chasing him across the road, shooting him on the next property. I feel better for him that this is how it happened.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple things I could say on this. One, if we would have found him 500 to 1,000 yards away, a mile away, that would have changed that would have changed things because, did he live for 2 months and then finally succumb? But the fact that we found him 50 yards from where the drone had a video of him, that's like, we know that he died as a result of your arrow.
And I know the ethics police will be out there saying, well, he suffered because you shot him and didn't find him. The meat went to waste. But these are also wild animals, and these are animals that get killed by coyotes every day. They get hit by cars every day. They die of... See, he's a 4-year-old buck. He could die from just being rutted out and die of old age this year.
He probably got stuck up in that swamp without able to use his front legs, and I bet you coyotes came in and finished him off. That's what I think would have happened.
So ethics police be damned.
Well, and the ethics police all depends on where you live. So we've talked about this on the podcast a lot. In Pennsylvania, you can't bait. Here in Ohio, we can bait. In Iowa, you can't use a crossbow. Here in Ohio, we can use a crossbow. In Kansas, you can use a 7mm mag. In Ohio, you cannot. So it all depends on where you live, on what it's ethical. You can't find deer with a drone in Iowa to track them, but you can in Ohio.
And a lot
so
of
it changes everywhere you go and where you live and what your culture, your immediate culture around the area of what you do determines what is ethical. Drones are insanely,
Efficient.
immensely efficient and popular here. A drone, our drone guy, Skyhound, Chris Toth, he's out every night from mid-October through gun season.
And on
Every
the weekends,
single
on the
night.
weekends, he's out all night.
Yeah.
Multiple track
that
jobs.
That night they were talking about, the one day in November, he did 3 track jobs with his drone. I mean, this guy's out. It's an efficient thing. We know guys here in Ohio that, like the Walker family, they call the drone even if they think it's a smoke show. Like
And also has
they
to
just
do-
bring the drone
it has
out
to
to
do where they're
guarantee
hunting.
the deer's dead.
Because they're hunting in more of a suburban area, so
Yeah.
they can see exactly where the deer is. They can go get permission to find it. They don't have to walk through 12 yards to find a deer. They shot it. It ran through 12 yards, and it's over here. They just had to go get permission to get there to find him.
Yeah, they are very they Justin and like the Pavlik boys, Matt. I'm not gonna put any words in their mouth because they'll yell at me. I'm saying it, but they exhaust all legal methods, so they're not opposed to calling in the drone, just like we did, to find the deer every time that they shoot a nice buck. They want to know for sure that that deer is dead, so they're calling in the drone. They're exhausting all the legal methods. They're not doing anything wrong, anything illegal. And whatever it is that we have our sliding scale of what we feel is moral, right, and ethical.
What we're going to talk about every day on the podcast.
Yeah,
like we do.
it literally is what we talk about on every single podcast.
And everybody has their own
what
sliding
makes a
scale.
trophy: crossbows, corn piles,
Drones.
straight-walled rifles, cell cameras. I'm starting to get. I mean, I love cell cameras to death, but I'm starting to get a little bit
Irked
peeved
about
at
them.
how much we use them, how much everyone uses
How much
them.
people rely on them.
It's I do miss. People are going to hear this and think Caleb's full of shit because he loves using cameras and everything. But now that everyone uses cell cameras and has cameras, every single hunter out there now has, a name for the deer, following the deer, an investment to the deer. They watch the deer in their cameras every single night. So it's creating more of a abrasive, like
Culture.
you against your neighbor.
Which
we're not partners, we're not buddies, we're not happy for each other. We're competing against
And that's
each other.
100% what it is. That's
Yeah.
the truth.
Yeah,
we are
100%.
competing against our neighbors at all times. So the romanticism of it all, when using a drone after you shoot a buck, that it just kills it for me. I hate it.
If this deer would have been 200 inches with 3 drop tines, would we have called the drone back
The
out?
drone would have been perched in the sky for 8 hours.
It's so
looking for a
sad to
deer.
say that, but it's the truth. I mean,
And people can get mad and yell at us all they want. That's simply the truth. And if
well, here's the thing. Here's the thing for me. A deer like this is going to be available to kill every single year. So yeah, we're going to do our best and we're going to be happy and we're going to put it on the wall and all that. But if this was a 180-inch triple drop tine buck, that deer we might never have an opportunity at seeing a deer like that ever again. So yeah, you might go the extra mile on something like that because
and is that shitty to say yes? And are people going to get mad? Yes. You shoot a doe that you can't find. Some people get as mad as they shot a buck.
I mean, it's like cooking dinner. Sometimes you just put microwave pizza in the oven and
Mm-hmm.
you're done with it. And other times you smoke ribs for 6 hours and make homemade mac and cheese.
Same
You don't
thing.
do the same for, maybe one's for a special event and one's a Tuesday night and you're tired. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah, it's tough. It is an end to the story. I'm happy we were able to find him, and I will display him somehow.
yeah, we'll come up with a cool.
I got another
I think there's a way to make a cool.
and a question for the audience. It's pretty in our circle. It's pretty much saying that this does not count as a buck kill, which I did kill him. I did find him, but finding him 3 months later really puts a giant asterisk on that.
So you've killed a mature buck with your bow 4 years in a row now with an asterisk.
Yeah, because unfortunately I didn't find this one for another 4 months after I shot him.
I think you should mount him right here on this window with a fence post and some barbed wire and 4 or 5 cattail stalks.
Yeah, go get
up,
some of those
like kind
cattails.
of like you did like the 5x3 up there. Just have
Mm-hmm.
some cattail stalks and have his rack sitting at an angle, like perched on the wall, just like this.
I don't know what I'm going to do about his skull. I guess
know what I
maybe
mean?
I'll go bury him or something. I don't know.
perch them like this,
I tried boiling him to a European mount, and the rotten flesh in the skull is degrading, and he was in the swamp for a couple of months, so that's kind of killing the European mount of him. But we'll find a way to display him for sure. I'm definitely still proud that we found him,
yeah.
but huge asterisks with me killing a deer. And here's another thing: I did continue to hunt after this whole situation.
Yeah, and
some people will say, "Not your tag, you're done." That's not us.
Yeah, I'm not. There, we have had those replies in this podcast before. If I wound an animal, I'm notching my tag. I'm not that guy. That's not. No.
Did I have another chance at a mature buck after that? Definitely not.
I actually did. For all you do-gooders out there who might want to be concerned about this kind of thing, I did text the game warden a video of the shot, a trail camera video of the deer before the shot, and a picture of the deer's skull after the shot.
And got a card
with Isaac's address and name and everything. So like, there's a card.
There's
a tag in the mail
tagged.
for him.
He was not tagged with my tag for the year, which
you could if you wanted. I guess
I don't think I can go on and tag him.
If the game warden wants to use your tag, I guess he can. It's up to him, but at least he knows about it. And that's another thing our group has kind of debated on the last couple of weeks: deadheads. So we have a large collection of deadheads in the shop here. A lot of
just from years of shed hunting and walking the woods, you find dead deer. That's just what happens.
I have gotten a tag for every deadhead I have found in the last like 4 or 5 years. I text the game warden a picture of the deadhead that I found, where I found it, and my address and name, and he sends me a tag in the mail.
Now it's a paper tag that you can't really do anything with.
There's a whole drawer of paper tags in their shop over there.
If they give us a metal tag, we can get on here. Then you could be legal beagle. But I guess we just have to have the tags and have the deer heads. We're not really even sure which ones go to which head.
But the debate has been, do you need to grab, like a lot of guys are like, I ain't getting no fucking tag for a deadhead that I find. It's all rotten skull, chunks of hide on it. Like, fuck that. If you're going to be doing anything in the public eye, social media or,
which we do,
whatever it is that you do, you got to have a tag for those. So we have been collecting tags for all the deadheads that we find. It's kind of a pain in the ass. I have a whole folder full of just deer tags that don't even correlate, but it's the legal thing you have to do.
Mm-hmm. So we do it.
If you're in Ohio, make sure you get a tag for your deadheads.
Mm-hmm. So that's the story with the 4-year-old 8.
Yep.
Pretty sad about it.
It could be worse.
I was not happy during the whole process in November, and I'm not that happy now. I'm glad we ended the story. And to explain, I guess we didn't exactly explain where I found him. In a giant swamp with reeds that are 12 foot high and 2 foot of water. So I don't even know if we would have found him. The only reason I found him now, got permission to walk that piece. It's actually two or three different properties. And the snow had blown all the reeds over. So he was kind of out in the open a little bit in the middle of this swamp.
Yeah.
So that was the only reason I was.
If we would have, one of the things I thought about doing before you just had a day where you were able to go do this, so you did it, which is fine. One of the things that I was thinking about doing was taking your drone and flying it during the day when there's not too much sun over that swamp.
Maybe we would have found him.
You might have been able to find him.
Yeah, it's kind of hard. But using drones for deer finding is the thermal is what gives you that edge. Yeah. We have a strictly videography drone that we use here for our videos and stuff. So trying to find deer with that is next to impossible. Yeah, like tough. You're using your phone screen, you're 100 feet in the air, you can't really see much.
Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah.
But that's the story. The one night in November, Isaac's 8 point. It's wrapped up.
It sucks.
It's not a perfect ending, but the deer's in the shop. We got it. I think it's going to make a push next year. I think our push next year, this year it was to get some of the guys that hadn't killed bucks in a long time to get their bucks. Freeman was able to get a buck. Spaniel was able to get a buck. Gore got 2 bucks. So we accomplished some of the things.
We did exactly what we wanted to do.
We accomplished the things we wanted to do. Freeman wanted to kill his buck on film, which he did for the most part. We were able to accomplish some of those goals we looked into. Luke wanted to kill another mature buck back-to-back. He was able to do that. Nick was able to continue on killing a mature buck streak. He's got that going now 3 years. But next year, I think our push is going to be to do things clean.
Yeah, get rid of the slop.
I think next year we really want to clean things up. We've had some years where things were very clean. Mm-hmm. Deer gets shot, deer gets tracked, find it.
Yeah, we got clean hunts. We're not spooking deer. We're only hunting when we need to. we've had years where it was perfectly clean.
The last couple years, I feel like we have gone into the season
Little slop.
very excited for what's happening. And then as things start, as the events are tumbling and unfolding and happening, we start to reel in slack too fast. And
we kind of make we zig instead of zag.
Yeah.
We make moves we maybe shouldn't have looking back.
Right.
Whether it's hunting this stand too much on this wind or going on this
Yeah.
side of the farm too much.
getting obsessed
pressure.
with killing bird's nest and not moving on to the other 4 mature bucks that are on the farm.
So
Or
hindsight's always 20/20, but we're going to try to pick up some of that slack. And it also helps
clean
that
it up. You know?
life is happening for all of us, so our time to hunt and time to spend in the woods is becoming less and less, which I think is going to help us a lot more.
It always should help us. There's definitely going to be,
We're not free every night of the week to go fuck around.
next year is going to be the first year where we're truly all not going to have unlimited freedom. Ethan is going to be done with school, on shift at his job, so he'll be a probationary fireman there and not have as much time off. I will have, a toddler at home going crazy.
I no longer have my fiance.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
babysit.
Isaac's fiance will no longer be free use babysitting. She's full-time job paying for the house that they're building because they're getting married this summer. So
Yeah.
we're going to have a lot less time in the woods. So it might be able to make our product more refined, hopefully.
And we are also working on our filming techniques, editing techniques, trying to make that more streamlined.
16 years in and we're still learning and
Yeah, we're still learning every day.
still trying to,
Trying to film podcast the best way. I'm sure we're messing something up with this one because we always do. I'm focused on the background.
your audio's louder
or
than
it's
mine,
too
but
dark,
I
yeah.
actually kind of like that because people say that I'm overbearing and talk too much. So if you're louder, it's going to make you sound like you're doing more than
So
talking.
we're always trying to improve on the tech of things as well, which I think we're doing. We have big plans for summer scouting this year.
Yeah, we're going to get some new lenses. We're going to get some fancy
We're
camera
going to get
lenses.
some super zoom lenses. We'll be able to film deer in slow motion,
Crisp.
at extreme distance.
Yeah.
And it should be really cool. We're looking forward to that. We're not going to be using just old camcorders for filming deer in the summer anymore.
I've said it every year, and we never end up doing it, but it's going to happen this year. I'm actually probably going to set up some blinds along the road downwind of these large bean fields and
Actually
certain of our
sit.
farms, and we're going to just drop guys off and sit and actually
For an hour.
Yeah, and actually properly sit there and film deer instead of just doing the road drive by.
It sucks because a lot of places, maybe not the places we can hunt, but the places that have deer that we will be able to hunt during the season are so accessible from the road.
Right.
So if we want to scout them, you literally have to sit on the road and scout them, which
And I think
has its difficulties.
I do think the deer get we know for a fact that the deer don't like the car slowing down, stopping, filming, and driving off. Like it spooks the deer. So I think if we set up some blinds in some areas and actually do hideouts and film properly downwind, then I think it'll cause less stress on the deer.
yeah,
to be
when
honest with
when the cars are going by, everything's fine. The deer get stressed out when there's someone walking, someone pushing a stroller, someone walking their dog down the road. Amish buggy down the road, they kind of freak out. Someone driving a tractor and fucking around, they freak out.
you. Yep.
But the normal traffic, they don't. So that's just our summer scouting. And we love to do that in the evenings. That's the one time where we usually have some time.
Yeah, because
8 o'clock at night on July 24th. We're doing something outside anyway, so
Yep.
we can go for a drive for half an hour.
Yep. Yeah, so that's the summer velvet footage is going to be a lot better this year. We're going to be able to tell the story in a lot more depth, hopefully. And
Have some nice crispy slow-mo.
I don't know what next week's podcast is going to be. We're trying to work on getting Tyler Gullett, 4G Outdoors, his
Coyote killer.
his coyote killing operation on here. He wants to be on the podcast, so we're going to try getting him on. I still think there's a possibility of us getting Aaron Olson on to talk about his season. Or we can just get the fellas together and talk about our shed hunting and our plans. I mean, we're probably going to start diving into that here.
Dylan can bring his pile of sheds.
Yeah,
he's got.
Dylan wants to get on the podcast anyways and talk about some stuff. So we're going to get Dylan on eventually to talk about his new food plot and his sheds that he found and his public land hunting plans.
His turkey hunt that he has coming up is going to be exciting.
Yeah, you guys, actually, I'll have to probably, that might be one of those ones I tap out and have you, Jay, and Dylan talk about your Western turkey hunting.
Mm-hmm.
Or his Western turkey hunting. But yeah,
That's it.
episode 86, Deer Shot Podcast.
And we are out.
Out.